But let's say you go out to your favorite Walmart and you pick up a few toys to resell. You go home to list them and you don't notice that Mattel on the listing that you're listing against is MAT space capital TEL on the listing page, because someone else created that listing detail page. And so you actually list against a wrong detail page, or a page where the brand was put the wrong way. And so Amazon thinks that you're somehow violating someone's intellectual property.
Liran Hirschkorn here, your host of the E-commerce Mindset podcast. And I just got finished interviewing Lesley Hensell of Riverbend Consulting. We spoke about the account health rating that's out right now, and also the recently launched account health assurance, and what's really happening behind the scenes. What's the data behind it? What are the main issues that are causing people to have either low ratings, low numbers, or getting suspended? How is account health assurance really working? And what do you need to watch out for in terms of managing your account health? We're in Q4. The worst thing that could happen to anybody right now is having account health issues and suspensions at the most important time of year. So this is not as sexy of a podcast on the marketing side, but this is important stuff you need to know if you're selling on Amazon. The podcast is sponsored by Incrementum Digital. We help you grow your brand on Amazon using Amazon advertising. And we're not just, optimizing bids. We are using data and insights to really create a strategy for you to grow your brand. And for some people, it's make your brand more profitable. For some people, it's to grow your top line growth. And actually, we set goals on a per product basis, either around growth or profitability, usually at parent ASIN level with a TACOS goal. The podcast is also sponsored by 8fig.co. 8fig is the best solution in the market for growth capital. They actually just rolled out a mobile app as well, which actually helps you track a lot of your sales data. And it's a really great mobile app. You can check it out as well. And I believe it's free to get that app. You can check out 8fig.co to learn more. Okay, so I have with us today Lesley Hensell of Riverbend Consulting, co-founder of Riverbend Consulting, to talk about some of the new updates that Amazon has recently put out, specifically account health rating and also account health assurance, to educate you on what those are, as well as how is it working in real life versus what Amazon says is supposed to happen. So Lesley, thanks for joining. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great. Okay, so maybe let's first talk about this account health rating that recently came out. What is it? Why did Amazon put it out? What is it designed to do?
So I'm sure that many of you had noticed for the past, 2 years in beta on your page talking about account health, it had the little strip, the little color code, and it was this pinky red and then yellow and a really ugly green. And it was supposed to tell you, green means you're in great shape, and red, you're probably suspended, and yellow, you better pay attention. So Amazon finally put some actual numbers to that beta, and the numbers are weird. The scale is very strange. I just got to tell you, this is so Amazon, because anyone else looking at the scale would be so confused. It goes from 0 to 1,000, and 1,000, you're cool, but 200, you're also cool.
Okay.
So 200 to 1,000 is good. Then below 200, you're at risk of suspension. Below 100, you're going to be suspended. So what they've essentially done is assigned points to various, what they consider violations. The big thing to know here that to me is the most surprising is that they put a high risk, medium risk, and low risk designation on different violation types. And high risk is suspected intellectual property violations, not reported, not where some company said these people have, they violated our copyright or our trademark. This is where Amazon's bots think that you maybe are violating someone's trademark. And so they ping you for suspected IP. And we have had clients who have been suspended because their number fell below 200 on suspected. And what's really scary about that is, like, say Amazon all of a sudden picks up some problem with a brand, and you've got 20 things listed for that brand, it can take you down below the magic number of 200 instantly.
What's an example of a suspected IP violation that would come up?
So this is more likely to happen with a reseller than a brand owner, obviously. But let's say you go out to your favorite Walmart and you pick up a few toys to resell. You go home to list them and you don't notice that Mattel on the listing that you're listing against is MAT space capital TEL, right? On the listing page, because someone else created that listing detail page who was not ungated for toys or was not ungated for Mattel. And so you actually list against a wrong detail page, or a page where the brand was either intentionally or unintentionally put the wrong way. And so Amazon thinks that you're somehow violating someone's intellectual property or selling a fake item or a counterfeit item.
Got it. What are the other things people need to kind of watch for with the account health rating? And you kind of said if you're between 200 and 1,000, you're good. I mean, if somebody's at 300, should they be cleaning up stuff? Like, how can they improve that number so they don't fall below?
That is a great question, because I think one of the dangers here is that as long as people are in the green, they're kind of going to sit back and say, I am good to go. And they're not going to appeal the ASIN violations and warnings in their account. You really do need to continue to appeal ASIN violations and get those reinstated. And I will tell you why. Because if you are suspended for an AHR suspension, meaning your rating falls below the magic number, the way that they are asking you to be reinstated right now is really hard. You actually have to successfully appeal every single violation. And so really think about that. So say you're a higher volume seller, so you have quite a few of these violations, but you're still got a high score. But then the suspected IP thing comes in on 2 brands and all of a sudden you get suspended. Well, you might have 10 inauthentics, 5 conditions, 4 product safeties, and a couple of restricted products sitting in that scorecard. So Amazon's going to tell you, well, if you want to get reinstated, I guess you're going to fix all those and the suspected IP. Good luck to you. And if you haven't done it all in 19 days, you're not coming back at all. Now, that's not true. Never believe Amazon when they say in 17 days, forever, you're gone. That's not true. But you have to get Amazon to read, respond to, and accept your ASIN appeals for all those things before they turn you back on. It's like an act of Congress. We've been working on several of these. We'll get everything cleared but one. And then we're having, the invoices aren't great on that one or whatever. And we're having to go back over and over till we get that one cleared. You don't want to be in that hot mess. Also, Amazon has added this new radio button thing when you get an ASIN taken down. And the wording on it is so English as a second language that you have to read it 5 times to really understand what they're saying. But it says either you accept the violation and you're not going to appeal, essentially, or you're going to appeal. That's what it really means. If you click accept the violation, you can never list that item again, ever. Wow. And if you do, you are circumventing. And we actually think that this is on the back end, one of the reasons Amazon's doing this way, because it's all automated. That is all automated, right?
Right.
So over time, if they see, let's say your team just goes through and accepts all these, and then you get a great price on one of the items and you list it again in the future, or you list it on another ASIN, but it's the same item, right? That happens, or it's 2-pack or 3-pack or whatever, you're circumventing. Circumventing is code of conduct level problem, which that's the stuff that's really hard to come back from. And Amazon's going to say, you already pled guilty over here.
Right.
And now you came back, you're gone. That could be devastating for a business, really hard to come back from. That's the kind of appeal that takes months to get back, if you ever even do.
Right. So don't accept it.
Okay. So there are some exceptions, and I'll tell you what they are. You accept it if you shouldn't have been selling the item. So you've got garbage invoices. You've got, it was liquidation. It wasn't in new condition. You have no proof that it is what it is.
Right.
You're going to have to accept it and move on. But then you've got to make sure that your entire team knows that you never, ever do anything to try and sell that item again, Because sometimes it may be blocked from the account, but there's 3 or 4 other listings on Amazon for the same item.
Right.
And if they catch you for that, it's devastating. So with those exceptions, I think it's important to fight back so that you can sell stuff in the future.
Right. So some of these things are more relevant, I guess, for resellers. How about what are, brand owners seeing as part of this account health rating and just what they're getting violations for?
So the thing that I would watch out for as a brand owner right now is to not be lulled into a false sense of security on restricted products and on safety. And I'll tell you why. For some reason that I don't fully understand, Amazon has ranked restricted products and safety as low risk.
Okay.
And so, I'll tell you why I'm really concerned about that. This is where being in it, and you'll understand this because you're a long timer, right? I am long-term on Amazon. I've been on Amazon as a seller for 12 years, and I have a long-term business outlook. As a seller, I don't want people on the platform with tons of safety and restricted products because that is dangerous for everyone on the platform.
Right.
We don't need those sellers out there. Well, right now, for some reason, Amazon has all those as low risk. So you can have a bunch of restricted product and safety violations and still have 1,000 on your score. I would predict that this is not going to stay how it is right now. And we've seen this before as consultants where Amazon's rolled out something new and then they have to rejigger things. They have to change it because it's not accomplishing the goals. Well, a goal is buyer trust. That violates buyer trust, and it even puts Amazon at risk from various legal entities and lawsuits, and they don't need that. So don't think that if you're a brand owner, that when you get restricted products and safety, which is what you're most likely to face, that you can just blow it off because your score's 1,000. You can't. You really need to keep addressing those because at some point they could just tune up that little algorithm and all of a sudden you're in the red.
Okay. Now you mentioned to me before we got on some interesting things you've been seeing as you've been pulling data around the account health assurance. In terms of some background, Amazon rolled out this account health assurance. They emailed accounts saying, hey, you qualify for this account health assurance. Before we suspend you, we'll reach out to you and we'll kind of, if you work with us, you won't get suspended, right? What have you seen so far with this new initiative?
So what they've said is if you're 250 or better for 6 months in a row, that you automatically qualify for this program as long as you have a phone number on your account or an emergency contact or whatever. So they have backfilled that. So even though the program didn't technically exist 6 months ago, if you've been in that place, you're good. But as with other things Amazon implements, it's not exactly going that way. Now, in some cases, we have seen people who, instead of being immediately suspended, they've gotten a 72-hour request for a plan of action. So their score was still above 200.
And that existed before, right? Before this.
Yes.
Sure.
But we could never really figure out why you would get that versus being suspended. There wasn't a whole lot of rhyme or reason. I'm sure there is somewhere on Amazon's back end, but as many account appeals as we work on, you'd think I would have a formula in my head. Never really got the formula, except super high volume sellers are more likely to get the 72-hour. But other than that, So we've had some people who their account health rating is poor. One guy was a 121, one was a 150, one was like just over 200, like a 202. And they got this, you need to improve your score in 72 hours. So they're literally telling them, you have to appeal these ASINs and get them fixed in 72 hours. And if not, we're taking you out. So that's been a positive. But then there have been some other people with very high scores who have been suspended. So got someone with a score that's in the 900s suspended for inauthentic. And so I looked in their account because I was like, wow, they've got to have other stuff going on. Oh, not really. It's just like one inauthentic and one IP violation in the last 6 months, and that's about it. So that's kind of a mystery. Another one was taken down for restricted products. They had 3 restricted products. Everything else is clean. And a nice score. So I don't know. Is it malfunctions? Is it that it's not working well yet? Then on the flip side, oh my goodness, we've seen some people's scorecards that are horrendous, and yet they have 1,000 as their score and they have no threat of suspension, and not super high volume either. I would expect it was someone doing 100 million or more a year. But when you're looking at someone doing 5 million and they've got everything but IP, so they've got restricted product violations, safety, inauthentic, all the things, and a bunch of them, and their score is 1,000, something is not working right. Because as someone who's looked at the back end of accounts for almost a decade, that makes me nervous. I wouldn't buy from that seller.
Right. Yeah. And so basically there's inconsistencies in terms of the rating and who Amazon is giving time and who Amazon is just suspending straight out.
Right. And I understand the point of the initiative. There's a lot of false positives, and that's what people have complained about for years, is getting suspended based on things that are false positives and don't make any sense. But I think as long as there are training deficits in seller performance, training deficits in seller support and in payments, you're still going to see a lot of these things happen. A perfect example is someone who Amazon suspended for payments. So their account is still live. They haven't been given their money in a long time. They had a lien filed against them from the state of Texas. They cleared the lien. They provided all the documentation to Amazon for months, still can't get their money. I mean, as long as there's stuff like that, and then eventually, y'all may not know this, but when your payments account is suspended, eventually they'll take down your selling account too. So we're really working against the clock to prevent that. And at the same time, the seller's like, do I even want to keep selling? Because they're not giving me my money. So, as long as there's this kind of problem, you're always going to be some
go
risks.
through like a legal process, like with Amazon, like through legal or appeals, or how do you, I mean, a lot of businesses can't survive if they're not going to get paid out for months. Amazon is really holding their money for no reason.
Right. So we just got this one late last week. We start these with payments. There's actually an appeals process in payments and an executive in payments that we escalate to first. But if not, you're correct. These really quickly go to legal. There's some executives in legal that we appeal to when something is clearly borderline not legal.
Right.
Like, we cleared this, we sent you the documentation, but there's always going to be real challenges, like the weird verification things that happen. I'm sure you sellers out there have seen this, where someone's been selling for 5 years and all of a sudden Amazon wants them to verify their account. And if you don't do it in a certain amount of time, they shut it off, but you already sent the documents 10 times and they shut it off even though you gave them the documents. This stuff is still going to happen. But what I would tell everyone for the new AHR thing is just don't court disaster. Don't think that because they've rolled out this assurance program, you can ignore your scorecard. Because I've seen a lot of comments online where people seem to think, oh, if I'm up in the, if I'm above 500, I'm not even going to appeal these ASINs. Just don't do it, because it just takes a few complaints and your number's shot, and they're going to make you appeal it anyway.
How many chances do you have with these appeals? So obviously you help sellers with this. And if a seller has this, ASIN issue, should they try to take the first shot themselves? If they don't get anywhere, then go, hire a pro, like Riverbend, or, do you get so limited chances that if you are not very confident in what you're doing on your own, you should straight up go to a consultant? Like, what's your, obviously maybe a little biased, right? Because this is what you do professionally, but like, what's your general advice? Like, should sellers take a shot at some of this on their own, and then, if it doesn't work, go and escalate to, a company like yours, or how would you advise?
So a lot of it depends on the complexity of the issue. If Amazon's just asking you for invoices, give them the invoices, which, by the way, you have not manipulated in any way.
Right.
A lot of condition appeals, those can be easily handled by sellers a lot of the time.
Like used, sold as new, or something?
Yes. Right. Yeah, where people are saying something was opened. If you fail more than a couple of times, you probably need to hire someone, or you are at risk, because they will kind of stop listening to you.
Right.
And because A lot of the escalation email addresses out there have been deprecated or don't get monitored. So you need to use someone who has current email addresses. And frankly, we protect ours because,
Right.
if they all get used, then they don't work anymore.
Right.
On full-blown account appeals, there are certain things you should never appeal on your own. You should never appeal code of conduct, review manipulation, counterfeit. So the really bad stuff, even if
Right.
you're innocent, forged documents is another one. If you say the wrong thing, they will block you completely after one appeal, and then you're just begging. So those that are like the super bad offenses, just don't do it on your own. Hire somebody. But the more like product quality, those people are much more likely to have success on their own.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And overall, I guess it seems to me like Amazon is making attempts to be more seller friendly, like over the last couple of years. I don't know if it's, increased competition from Walmart, right? Or Shopify, or, do you find that that's a general sense, or is it not the case?
I will tell you what people on my team have told me. I
Okay.
have a lot of ex-Amazonians on my team, many of whom worked in seller performance and seller support.
Right.
This account health assurance and account health rating, they think is some MBA's project that sounded really good, but won't be implemented well. I had multiple of them say that in the trenches. They think it's not really going to accomplish what they want to, but it's going to make executives feel good. They see this
Right.
as internal, makes the executive team feel good about being more seller friendly. The problem is there are so many other things that are broken that I actually believe that their motivation is more to avoid regulation and legislation.
Right.
So there have been threats of legislation in California, then there's people pushing for legislation in Congress that, to control how Amazon has a relationship with the marketplace, or even to force Amazon to choose between the third-party marketplace and selling itself,
Right.
which is dangerous for all sellers, but there are
Right.
people pushing for it. So I think that this is more to avoid that. But then at the same time, brand registry has gotten impossible to navigate. People's brand registry accounts are being shut off for no good reason. We have so many of those appeals. Funds issues happen all the time. I mean, there's just so many. We have a category of work at our company that we call NSW, not non-standard work. Non-standard work used to be like 10% of what we do. Now it's like 80% of what we do. And it's these bizarre problems that Amazon has not solved. And many of them are in categories that actually hurt big sellers and brand owners, like all of the brand registry stuff, or
Right.
sudden loss of privileges, suddenly don't have deals, no idea why.
Right.
So really, I think the motivation is more about getting legislators and attorneys general off their back,
Right.
more than anything
So
else.
whether or not account health rating and account health assurance works very well, saying that you put it in place, right, and that it's out there, gets maybe regulators off your back, right?
It's good PR and it makes people in the company feel good. But then, recently there was a report about Amazon and buyer confidence and how buyers feel about Amazon compared to other online platforms and compared to the past, and it's dropping. So that's why I would not expect the metrics and the way they've implemented this to stay in place, because it's like this swung the pendulum way over to the other side where buyer experience doesn't matter. And it's all about looking good to regulators and making legal happy, because there's so much focus on intellectual property.
Right. Well, there was a Washington, ironically enough, a Washington Post article out like around a week or so ago that basically said the buying experience is poor because of how much Amazon is prioritizing ads. And the thought behind that is, something that ranks organically at the top is algorithmically designed to deserve to be there, let's say, right? Based on people buying the product and reviews and everything else, versus an ad where I can push my product to the top, even if I have, terrible quality and whatever it is, right? And that's a lot of the experience now, across the majority of page one is mostly ads. And so I feel like maybe that could be part of that confidence dropping for, quality and the type of products you see at the top of the page that are ad driven and not necessarily organic. And I guess at some point, if they push it too far, they'll have to pull back, in terms of the amount of ads at the top, or I could see them moving a little bit more organic to the top if it affects the client experience, right? And they get negative media and they see it in the metrics. And I guess same goes for poor quality sellers, right?
See, that's such a great point. And you know what's related to that? So when you read through these policies with the account health rating and saying we're not going to suspend you if you work with us, they didn't have any exemptions in there for like code of conduct.
Right.
They didn't have an exemption in there for review manipulation. So are you telling me that if someone's manipulating reviews because they're bombing their own ASINs and they're bombing their competitors' ASINs with negative reviews and click farms and all kinds of stuff,
Right.
they're going to work with you? So you're going to benefit from that while they work with you? Because to me, you should be taken down right away.
Right.
And then you've got your one chance to get back and, 2 strikes and you're out like it's been. So, and that all hurts buyer experience and it hurts people's trust in the platform. So I'm really skeptical. The only exceptions they had were performance related. So that's things like, late shipping and not having your tracking,
Right.
valid tracking and canceled orders. But there was nothing talking about like, if you're a really bad guy,
Right.
then you're just suspended and we're not going to work with you. I don't know. I asked my team about that. They said, well, sometimes they don't explicitly say that, but it seems very strange to me that they wouldn't give a warning, because that just encourages people to let's just try it and see what happens.
Right. How much does Amazon take into account the amount of time that you've been on the platform? I mean, is that a consideration? Somebody that's been on 7 years and suddenly has an issue should be less of a red flag than somebody that's been on 6 months and has an issue, right? Does Amazon take that into account? Like if, been having the seller account for many years and it's been relatively clean and now I have an issue, or is that generally not counted for?
So it's generally not accounted for. Their look back for performance is 180 days. So usually they're looking back at 180 days of data if you've been on the platform 180 days or 10 years. There is actually a term inside of Amazon, GSGB, good seller gone bad. This is a thing they watch for, where someone all of a sudden is ripping people off, or they sell the account to someone, or
Right.
they get hacked or whatever. So they are on the lookout for negative changes. They don't really care if you've been on a long time.
Right. But you would think that should be, I mean, that's a good way to have red flags versus potentially false red flags, right? Somebody's been selling 7 years, suddenly has an issue, instead of trying to work with that person versus the person that's been on for 6 to 12 months or or a shorter period of time, where they shouldn't get as much leeway if they if they really have serious stuff on the account. But
there you are using common sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think also Amazon's known, even when they put out products or anything that they do, that they really they put something out and they try to fix it along the way, right? This is typically the Amazon way of rolling anything out, whether it's a product or something for sellers or for consumers. Like they kind of look to roll it out fast and then fix it along the way, and that's the Amazon way. So which is, if you get to know, and like you said, been on the platform a long time, that, and you expect when something new comes out. And this is stuff we see on the marketing side. Amazon attribution still doesn't work very well, still doesn't track very well, and it's still called a beta after a long time of being out, and it's sort of clunky. And that's what Amazon does. They roll something out and they look to make improvements over time to it. Will remain to be seen, I guess, if this account health rating and assurance ends up getting better or not. What's the best way to reach out if people do have account health issues that they want to get some advice around or a second opinion on how to handle?
So head on over to riverbendconsulting.com. We have forms you can fill out, or very unusual these days, we have an actual phone number with people who answer the phone.
Nice.
And we'll talk to you. And as just mentioned, we are happy to give second opinions, talk about your problems. We're not just there to sell you something. We love it if we can, but if not, we're happy to just talk it through and see if this is something you do need help with. Also, over on LinkedIn, if you type in Lesley Hensell, I post new Amazon content every day. And for the next several weeks, we'll be talking about account health rating several times a week as we have this actual data to look at, since we do have enough of a mountain of data that comes in through our doors that we can try and parse things for you.
Excellent. Great. Well, appreciate you taking time to share this update with us. It's very useful to hear not just, what's rolling out, but like the data behind the scenes in terms of what's actually happening. And yeah, highly recommend you follow Lesley on LinkedIn. You can kind of stay up to date on what's happening in terms of account health. So thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you.